Welcome to another enriching episode of Mindfully with Tumishe. Today, we explore the intersection of grief, love, and legacy through the eyes of someone who has not only lived it, but has also documented it in a deeply moving way. My guest today is Princess Mofebishola Mefoworade Omopeloye. She's the author of In the Footsteps of Love, 32 Lessons from My Abba. This book is more than a memoir, and Omogboropo of Olgotwenkiti is using this as a tribute, a heartfelt tribute to her father, the late His Royal Majesty, Oba Samuel Oladapo Oyebade. Through 32 profound lessons, she takes us on a journey of wisdom, faith, history, and the values that shape a life well lived. We'll be discussing the powerful stories in the book, the importance of preserving history, and how grief can birth transformation. I also will be sharing my personal reflections on the book and why it is a tribute to grief. So, grab a cup of tea or coffee or water, settle in, and let's dive into this conversation that promises to be as inspiring and as it is thought provoking. I am Uluwatumishe Oladapo. I have here, I don't even know how to say it. Like, my heart is beating bing, 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 bing. Princess Mofebishola Mefoworade Omopeloye. Me. Oh, yeah, buddy. Are you, babe?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so this is a full circle movement. Do you know why it's a full circle movement? Remember when we're building a studio, you were the first person I tested the mic on. You remember? Yeah. We're trying to get angles and how this place works. So thank you very much for honoring me to come talk about In Footsteps of Love, 32 lessons from
Abba?
Abba. What's Abba?
Abba is the dialect word for father.
Okay, you make it.
Yes, so in my dialect is Abba. In Yoruba is Baba.
Oh, okay. All right. It's not so far from Hebraic word, Aramaic way of saying father. Again, we are also connected. We just don't know how connected we are on it. So sometimes I don't understand when we have all this disagreements and we're all trying to find, and all the disagreements we're having is all of us trying to find ourselves in this thing that we call world. But let's not even get, because if I get into that, I'm not finished. All right, so let me tell you, I retitled this book. I'm sure you read it. I'm sure you read it. I retitled it A Tribute to Grief. How did that land with you when you read that?
Well, it didn't come as a surprise, actually.
How so?
Well, for most people, when they lose a loved one, they tend to grieve immediately. I didn't get to do that.
Okay.
And I'm sure most of my siblings didn't get to do well as well. So
Okay.
I think the first time I cried was his first posthumous birthday.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, normally weeks before the birthday, everybody's calling, oh, where will you be? Where will you be? How are we putting things together and all of that? And for the first time, there was no calls, no messages. What are we doing this year? And then on that birthday, it finally dawned on me that
No, Abba.
this man is gone. And maybe because I was home alone that day, I cried for about 45 minutes, 1 hour.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, so this this is the end, and well, there has to be more to this than
Just crying.
crying
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
all of that. And after all the tears, and I'm like, okay, so every year on his birthday, I'll just maybe take myself out, celebrate.
Nice.
And so that was when I came up with the idea of celebrating on his birthdays instead of just staying
Staying at
sad and having all of those emotions around me.
Okay, so how was it for you emotionally being Omogoriokpo? Okay, for those who don't know what Omogoriokpo is, especially if you're listening from outside Nigeria, she became the regent right after her father transitioned. So in Yoruba, we do not say the king has died. We say they transitioned. Oh, how did you put it in the book? They have gone to
They've moved from one
realm to another.
another.
Okay.
Yes. So in Yoruba, the word would be Obawaja. That means it has gone a step higher.
Oh, in the realm.
Yes.
In the realm of existing. And that's so. Would you say that your delayed grief, is tied to you being a regent right after, or did you always know you were going to be a regent?
Yes and no.
All right. Fair.
Okay, so to a large extent, I had a feeling I was going to be, but then again, I have an elder sister. Should I say elder sister now? Sorry, my dad has a daughter,
Okay.
an elder daughter. So in most places, the first daughter gets to be the regent. So I really wasn't
Expecting to be the regent.
Yes.
And how did you handle, losing him and all the drama that comes with administration, the administration of being you were more or less a king, and then you also just had a baby and all of that, and you just lost your father-in-law. So it was a whole lot. How did that work for you?
It wasn't easy. Most times I was on the road trying not to stay away from home.
Okay.
That's my marital home.
Okay.
And at the same time, trying to keep up with what's happening in Ogotun Ekiti. So sometimes we're in Ekiti 2 weeks and in Lagos 3 days. Sometimes we're in Lagos a week, we're in Ekiti 2 days. Sometimes we do go we're in Lagos today, we're in Ekiti in the middle of the week, and by weekend we're back in Lagos. And traveling with a child, it's never easy, but then we had the best support system anybody could have asked for, so it kind of made it
a little bit easy. Just a little bit. So let's get to In Footsteps of Love. Were you writing this book during your regency, or you wrote it? Because I read there that you were at an event and then all the 32 lessons came and you just kept writing. Was this during your regency or on his birthday?
No, it was during regency. That was December 2021.
Okay.
I had gone for Holy Ghost Congress,
Okay.
reading, and
it was quite a known one at Holy Ghost Congress, wasn't he? Now,
it was always there. So when I arrived and I entered the auditorium, I knew a lot of people around, so most of them came. Hey, how are you? How is mommy? How are things? And hi, she didn't know, and blah, blah, blah. They just kept asking questions, and I was, after a while, I shut out. I was there, but I wasn't there. And as the service started, people were praising God and all of that, and then
it just doesn't sit well.
Not exactly, and then I didn't go with a note and a pen, so all the lessons just started coming. So I picked my phone, I opened my notepad, and then I just started typing. I'm like, oh, this would do for just to share something. I wasn't even thinking of writing a book. And then I did the hashtags and all of that. I think that night I wrote about 20 lessons.
Wow.
Yes, because of this service. I still have it on my note. And then that was how I got most of the lessons. I guess maybe one line per lesson. Then I'm like, oh. As they were coming, sharing, oh, he was such a good man. He was always at camp. He wouldn't miss Holy Ghost service. This one, that one, blah, blah, blah. And then I began to write. So that was where it came from. And when I decided to flesh it out a bit, it became bigger and bigger and bigger.
What was the first one that came? Since you have it on your note lesson, what's the first lesson that came before we go into the 32 lessons? Yeah. What was the first lesson that came? Because I'm wondering, when I lost my mom, the last thing I wanted to do was write. In the same thing when I lost my dad, the last thing I wanted to do was to be creative in any way. I wasn't crying. I still haven't cried. But for me, it just felt like a part of creativity, a part of my creative self just died. And the same thing happened when Ianu died too. A creative part of me that I'm just picking up died. So I'm wondering what the first, but maybe it aligns with how you put it down, but what was the first you wrote down on that night?
I think the first thing I wrote that night would be fighting your battles wisely.
How quaint. And why was that the first?
I know at that point.
Yeah.
We had not cancelled the Thanksgiving service.
Oh.
We eventually, I think we cancelled first week of January. At that point, we were even still planning.
Oh yeah.
But by then we had fought.
There's been, guys, don't worry. We'll leave that at that. But let's talk about the book. Again, we've talked about what the significance, the cultural significance of the king going to another realm, and how does this cultural perspective shape your grieving process, given that you could not truly give him that kingly, that royal burial that we all wanted for him to have. So how did that metaphor affect the way or impact the way you grieved him as you wrote in his footsteps of them? Hey there, are you ready to start living mindfully and gain clarity in your life? I welcome you to Black Images. This is a lifestyle spa that works to cater to every facet of your daily living, aligning this to the purpose of nurturing health, harmony, and spiritual growth with experiential education in holistic living. How to be part of this community? Very simple. You can start with listening to Mindfully with Tumishe, the podcast. Check out Living Mindfully, a journey to being, a book that would help you to live mindfully and support your meditation practice. And join our Journey to Clarity package and work with our coach to identify thought patterns that sidetrack you and create solid action plans to empower you to get back on track. At Black Images, we're passionate about mental health awareness and supporting your journey to clarity and self-discovery. Join our community today and start living mindfully.
Well, for the process, their traditional rite, we did all of that. Every single one.
Okay, good. I didn't know that.
So it was the party. It was the party part, and then the for everybody to see, oh, this man has great children that we didn't get to do.
Okay,
But
how
for
did that affect
everything we're
everybody?
supposed to do traditionally, we clicked all the boxes.
Okay,
for
so
that.
that you being a Mogoriopo at that point and you being in his footsteps quite literally, how did that impact your understanding of leadership and responsibility? Because there's a chapter on that. So how did that impact you?
I think for one, I got to understand my dad better,
Okay.
because for him, sometimes he put Ogoto ahead of us. I didn't get to understand that growing up, but then
Yeah.
while I was his Omogoropo, I knew why I had to do some of the things he did, and I understand why myself and my siblings had to leave home early. My brother left home at 2. Pastor was sent to the boarding house at 2 years.
Wow.
I left at 4.
Wow.
And then I think PF and Gbade also left around 4 or 5. So, but Pastor was the youngest. So I could understand he didn't want us growing up, not just growing up in Ogotun, but then in a way it kind of sheltered us away from what was happening in town, and then we did not have everybody putting eyes in our business. And at some point, when my brothers were in school in August, one time they were leading in their classes, and some parents were complaining that is it because they are princes, that is why they always take first. So taking us out of town took that away. So in a way, could, without us being in town, I mean, even security wise, it wasn't so safe. So it could focus on the things it needs to focus on, knowing we're safe where we are, and
yeah. So that takes me. Is that the first chapter in the book where always put your family first?
that should be 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's lesson. If you guys are the first. The lesson 2 was choose your battles wisely. Then lesson 1 got over everything. Yes. Lesson 3, you said put your immediate family first. And in my note here, I'm like, what you wrote here is your spouse and children don't need to fight or remind you before you put them in the order of importance. Takes me to the story you told in the book when Kabesi put you on his lap. Do you want to tell us the story? Yeah.
Okay. So we had gone to Ondo town. My mom is from Ondo town. Was it 2002? Oshemawe had just passed, and then it was the
It's Oshemawe?
Yes, it was for Oshemawe's.
I am the Ondo girl, and I always thought that word was Oshemawe. Okay, go ahead. Thank you very much for that education. Go ahead. Yep.
And then it was the outing service for him. So we all went. Just, I think, Dad, Mom, and myself. So we got in, and with all the arrangements, this and that. And my grandma's, was he a friend now? But then she's very familiar with my grandma, and then so she knows my mom very well. And then when she sees my mom, and she's like, "Oh, okay, your daughter can't sit here." And my mom goes, "Why?" He said, "No, this place is not meant for children. It's for the KBSCs." And my mom says that then I have to go and sit outside. So my mom said, "No." Well, because she was my grandma's supposed friend. My mom was like, "Okay, let it go." But my dad said I wasn't going to sit outside. I wasn't going to be far away from him. One, it was a big ceremony. There were a lot of guests, and I think I was less than 12 at the time. So
12? That's a big age, though. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
And you just didn't want the idea of, what is going to happen to this child if my eyes are not on her all the time, and then she gets lost or something. So he said, no, you know what will happen? Okay, you can take the seat, no problem. I would lap her. My mom wanted to, but he said no, that it was going to lap me, and it did.
What a memory for you. What a memory for you. Of course, because you're the last, with a lot of older people, and then you became an Omogoreko, then you had to deal with other elders and other kings and all of that. How was it? How has it been for you growing up with such elderly people, such, I don't want to say wisdom, because from what I've read in the book, it's not like all elderly people are wise. But you know, how has that shaped the way you relate with people, and yeah, your the way you relate with people with that kind of story in your backpack?
Well, I'd rather be in the background than be at the forefront. And well, other people are just greet and move on. I remember once at my brother's wedding, one of my friends had said, "Oh, it's such a good thing you're short." And I asked why.
Family joke.
Because it was at a wedding, I think PF's wedding. And then as I'm seeing this person, I'm bending, I'm kneeling down. Oh, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma. Blah, blah. And then she's like, how are you doing this in 1 minute? You are up, next thing you are down. Is it because you're short?
Oh, yeah.
So I think mostly what I used to do was before I became a Mokoro, I'd greet and move on. Like, I'm out, except Popsy now says, oh, I want you to sit in for this meeting or something like that. Other than that, I greet and move if I'm home. But then when I became Omogoroko, it kind of changed. I couldn't hide anymore. Sometimes I wish I can anyways.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. And I just listen. It came with a lot of restrictions. Oh, you can no longer bend. You can't bend to greet anybody. Just sit there where you are. Whoever comes, you don't even have to shake them. Just wave the hostel at them. You cannot raise your hand. Just sit where you are. Just if you want to greet the person, just do the hostel this way. And I'm like, oh, okay. Is that?
And the hat part though, you had to wear your hat forever.
Yeah, and then of course they said the head has to be covered. You can't eat in public. You can't drink in public, and a few other things.
How did you navigate that mentally?
Oh,
How did you navigate that? Forget the support system. I'm asking you now how you navigated that.
Most times I just want to stay indoors and just close myself off. And I mean, when I'm indoor, I'm not in public, so I can do anyhow.
It's with leg up, staff off.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know. Okay. One of my most, of course, you know that the history part is my favorite part and all that. But here's a story. There are two stories that I want to highlight. Giving is a blessing. That's lesson number 4. And I remember a particular year after the Muslim community in my hometown of Ogotoekiti left their praying ground during the annual Ileya celebrations. They had stopped to see my dad on their way back to town after prayers. They stopped at my dad's private residence, the one before he moved permanently into the palace. The custom was for these Muslim faithfuls to stop year in, year out for two things. The first, to pay homage, to pay respect in their homage. He was, after all, the king and the father, the spiritual head of the kingdom. Secondly, they prayed for him in the kingdom. He would then greet them and address them. Although I can't remember the exact year now, but I was at home when they arrived, and I remember the story he told them that day quite well. In admonishing them, he spoke on giving. He explained that when God wants to bless people, he starts from the head. From the head, the blessings flow to the other parts of the body, the forehead, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, to the neck, and then to the shoulders. It is from this point that it moves to the arms, hands, and finally fingers. At this level, the blessings are supposed to flow to others. So the hands have to be left open to bless others. That metaphor is beautiful. What makes you remember that story?
I don't know. It's got stuck with me.
Yeah. And how has that shaped the way you give or withhold? Because you also know that people take that for granted. Yeah, you and I know that. So how has that helped you? This lesson, what's the balance that you find in all the lessons that your dad left?
Okay, so for these particular lessons, I think the balance for me would be if you need something and you come to me, let's say you need 50K, oh, I need 50,000, I want to repair something, I want to buy something. Oh, I ask you, what do you want to use this thing for? For business of okay. And then I ask you, how much do you have? If you need 50K, you don't expect me to give you 50K.
Yeah.
And then if you say, oh, I have 30K, all I'm looking for is 20K. And then I tell you, okay, I can give you the 20K, but I can't give you immediately. You have to give me time to put it in my plan. It can be next month, it can be whenever.
But I will give you.
But I'm not just going to give you immediately. When I'm ready, I will give it to you.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one way. And then one, two, I have to look at what you've been doing. For instance, in August, we all know ourselves. We know what everybody is up to.
Yeah.
So if you have this, if you are known that, oh, this person is not so serious. So if you come to me for that kind of help, I'm thinking, based on what this person is known for, based on what this person has done before, can I actually help this person? Will I be helping this person if I do this?
Is that different than the way your father did it?
I think something like that.
Yeah.
Because in a month, I think he has a budget for giving monthly. And then when he exceeds it, there's nothing you can do.
Absolutely nothing.
Even as his child, you have to wait.
Wow.
When you say, oh, Daddy, we have this book we're supposed to buy in school. And he says, how much is this book? And you say, oh, it's 10K. Because it's not in my plans for this month. Maybe next month I'll put it in for you. Can you wait till he asks you, can you wait till next month?
Yeah.
And then if you say, it's very urgent, you can
wiggle.
You can wiggle. But if it's not so urgent, you have to wait till next month.
All right, so lesson 5, as you can see, I wrote here the debate. Lesson 5.
Okay.
It says, take care of your parents. And you and I know that there's debates all over socials as to whether you should take care of your parents and all that. And I'm glad that you spoke to the fact that being a Mogorioko gave you perspective about how some decisions your dad made. Again, Omogorioko is simply a regent, all right? But saying regent is not sweet in English. It's not. It's not making it. It's not carrying the weight that it's supposed to carry. So, you as an Omogorioko. And understanding now how some certain things your dad did as the king and the spiritual father and how that affected them. Let's come to taking care of parents. You say here, there's no point spending all the money in the world for one's parents' funeral if you cannot care for them while they were alive. Yeah, it may not be their retirement plan, which is the debate, but you should still show them love and respect from being the vehicle that brought you into this world. Some people will say no. That is me adding my own jara. If they were ever responsible for you when you were young and knew nothing about life, it's only fair that you should do the same now that they are old, getting frail, and not as strong as they used to be. Don't worry, she balances it. She says, I understand some parents did not pull their weight enough. They may not have loved and cared for you as a child. They may have torn you down with their words and action as you grow. As you read this book, I'm urging you to forgive them. My dad loved his parents and did all he could to take care of them in their lifetime. He admitted that his mom's death was one of the saddest events of his life. He was pained he could not do much for her, and then he passed the affection he had for his mom to his sisters. After her death, he took up the responsibility of his 6 other siblings, a decision that made him leave work at Ibadan to return to Ekiti so he could be closer to them. His sisters all occupied an important place in his life, such that he took on the duty of caring for them and some of their children. Can we do the debate now? You know, it's a big debate, yeah? Extended family, immediate family, and this story here, and the lesson number 3 that says put your immediate family first. How do they align?
Okay. They are both important, but one is more important. One is important.
Fair, yeah.
So the immediate family is more important. You should take care of them. But at the same time, I think one's parents are equally important to one. I mean, one of the reasons I could let go of that January 29th party for my dad was because I knew, why this man was alive. Every birthday we were around him. So losing out on a party wasn't such a bad idea after. I mean, he knew we had children that loved him. So they are both important. Your parents are important. Your immediate family are more important. So you just have to find a way to balance it. Yes, your immediate family should be around you. Your parents don't have to live with you. They can be in their own place. Just ensure they get the help that they need. If it's to get a nurse to take care of them, or to get a living maid
for them,
you can do that. Get them the medicines.
So what would you say about when, and don't look at me, don't use me as an example, okay? Don't use me as an example. I had to put that there because I know you. Don't use it as an example. So what would you say to people whose parents, just like you said in the second paragraph of that chapter, whose parents were truly mean to them and they're finding it difficult to move past the pain to actually not take care of them? What would you be saying to them?
It's difficult to get past that, and sometimes you can't do it on your own. Sometimes you really have to pray about it, and if you are able to, maybe not love them as much as you would like to, but then the little you feel, this is what I can do for this person,
just to honor them,
just do it and move on
for the sake of posterity.
Not just for the sake of posterity, for your own peace too. Because the more you abhor them, the more you hate them.
Gotcha.
The more
you're stunted. That's the truth. Because you're stunted emotionally, it affects the people around you.
So sometimes you just do it for yourself, not necessarily for them, but then for yourself.
One of my favorite parts is Mr. It Could Have Been Worse.
That story, I heard it over and over and over and over again.
Be grateful. That's lesson number 10. It could have been worse. Tell the story, please. Tell the story.
Okay, so I think there are 2 stories that you would always say that I love. So one is this could have been worse. A man that whatever happens to him, whatever happens to you, and let me go and meet this wise old man and talk to him, and then he goes Say, Baba, life has been very difficult. This one, that one has happened. And then the man looks at you and he tells you, be grateful, mommy.
It's good.
It could have been worse. And then you're like, I just told this man I've lost everything I've worked for and he's telling me I should be grateful. Why do I have to be grateful? Why does he keep saying
It could have been worse.
it could have been worse? Why is he saying this? And you know the way it is in the villages. Of course, that man's name. I mean, in Ogotun, there was a man people used to call Pelema India, simply because each time you greet him, he tells you, oh, my dear Pele. So his name automatically became Pelema India. And there are a lot of other people like that. Based on what they say all the time, frequently, people have named them based on that. So this man's name eventually became Mr. It could have been worse. I mean, what else does this man have to tell us other than it could have been worse? Don't let me even go and meet that man. I know what he will tell me already. He will just say, be grateful it could have been worse. What else is he going to say? Before So a lot of people already knew him, but then like, what are we going to do about this man? We need him to say something else other than this. Let's even see him heartbroken. Let's see if he will still say it could have been worse. And then they planned and then came up with a plan. The man's son was coming back home after a long time. He had traveled abroad and they're like, okay, it was in the era of no phones. We'll just kill him and let's see if this man will still tell us it could have been worse. And so they executed the plan, and on his way home, before he got to where they were waiting for him to be killed, he had an accident. And he was taken to the hospital. So the people waiting to kill him, he didn't get to them, so they couldn't kill him. And the people that went to meet the old man with the news that, your son was involved in an accident, were surprised when he told them, thank God it could have been worse.
And in this case, it really could have been worse.
But he didn't know that. And then those ones were like, it was at that point it literally just made sense to them that, this man is actually correct. All this why he has been saying it could have been worse. It is actually true. And that was when I think it was at that point that they got the lesson, that they understood what Mr. Could Have Been Worse has been saying all of those years back.
Why did you use the story for the Be Grateful chapter? That's lesson 10.
Well, when I was writing, I think after I had finished the first draft and somebody suggested that, why don't you tell some stories? Why don't you just include stories in this thing so that it makes it relatable. And then it was like, preferably stories you heard from your dad, stories about his life. And it was at that point that I began to add stories, and I think I added about 10 or more stories at that point.
A good name is priceless.
Okay.
Some might say that because he was a king, but then we know what's happening with kings right now. Abroad kings and the things that they say.
It wasn't like that in his era.
A good name is priceless. I don't even want to stick it because it's a huge debate as to whether, but I'm glad that his name speaks for you. History. That's my favorite chapter. So let's sit down there for just a bit. This is lesson 15. And I think that's the crux of this matter, of the whole of this book. Your father was an historian, and I think you have bitten off his phone.
Just small.
Just small. You're just a little bit. All right. While history is in the past, this is from the book In the Footsteps of Love. 32 lessons from Abba. While history is in the past, it's advocacy for history. While history is in the past, it can be used as a reference and can teach some lessons. Hence my strong advocacy for history to be taught in our schools. The correct history, of course, not adulterated truth or half lies that have been passed down, the true account of what happened in the past. One thing he taught me about history is that the facts of history can be adulterated by anyone telling the account of a particular past event depending on his or her interest. How does that lesson serve you now? Because you sat as Omogori, you are a CEO of the CEO of the Star Concept. I know that you have a couple of people that you're responsible to and for. How has this served? Does this help you in a sort of money kind of way when people bring cases to you?
Okay, so for history, so what Popsy would do normally when we get home is most times, even some things that happened quite in your presence, it tells you again. I guess it was just trying to make it sink in things that were happening, and then because he wrote a lot of things, it doesn't throw anything away.
Yeah, there's a chapter of that. Document everything. All right.
So we kind of know everything. And something happened after he passed. We had land issues with our neighbors. And then they claimed, oh, the land is theirs and all of that. And then when we escalated and we got to the commissioner, local government affairs and chieftaincy issues. So the guy's from my phone. And then the guy goes, you cannot be dragging land with Ogotun people. That was what I told the other party. That back in the days, the neighbors of Ogotun were Efon, Alaye Nekiti, Ilesha, Deji, that's Akure, Ewi, Ado. That those were the initial neighbors
Of
Ogotun. Those were the people, historically, those were the people we used to share boundary with. That you people are now there now does not mean their land is yours. If we go back in the days, you cannot claim the land you are now claiming. So historically, the commissioner went that way. That way to bring out history. And then he said, but in best interest to ensure peace and all of that, let everybody go back home and maintain status quo. So that was how he ended it.
Oh my goodness.
So he went the history part. Maybe because he knows history, he knew the people we were neighbors with before. So if you know your history in a way, it helps you understand who you are, make better decisions for yourself and for those around you. That's
simple and short. Okay, so I don't even know whether it's going to be heavy, but lesson 16. Okay. Death is inevitable. I absolutely love how you open this. It says, death is not rarely a bad thing. It all depends on how you look at it. For some, it is an opportunity to rest from all troubles, pains, and sufferings they have been through. It may seem like the end of life, but the real sense of it, it marks a new beginning for everyone. To the one who had died and the ones that may have been left behind. Was this grief speaking? Was this grief speaking, or this is how you choose, or is the metaphor of Obawaja that is speaking, or was this just you trying to navigate grief with? Where did this definition of death come from?
It just came. But then when you have loved ones that have been sick for a while, that have been in and out of hospitals, and when the person is an older person, even doctors don't send you. You get to the hospitals and they say, oh, you're 70, you're old enough to die. What are you doing here? Some doctors say it. I think there was a time my dad went to the hospital and The doctor told him, "Oh, you're old enough to die." And then when the head of the department heard about it, he was furious. And that day he advised us that each time he visits the hospital, he shouldn't use his real age.
Mm. 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 Mm.
And then I've read about another hospital somewhere in Ekiti. Now I got to another place in Ekiti. Once you're 75 and above, and you go in there, don't even think about coming out alive.
Wow.
So the idea is they would go all out for younger people, but when you are older, they're like, "Oh, you've seen life, you've seen a lot, you can go and rest now." But back to what I initially said, when you've had a family member that has been sick for a while, sometimes you just want them to just rest from it all. Oh, you've tried. You don't want the person to die, but you're taking in the person's pains. And you're like, oh, this man that used to run around everywhere himself is suddenly not able to move 200 meters at a stretch. If he does 100 meters, oh, you're like, this man has strength today. So when you look at all of that, and you're like, for some older people, they don't want to be in that condition where someone would have to carry them inside, carry them from wherever, or they want to cross the road. Somebody is helping them to cross the gutter and all of that. Some of them don't like. They would just rather prefer, let me go now honorably than just stay here and live through this.
I know. I know that for a fact. So as we round this off, yes, I've called the tribute to grief, and of course, I do not think I want to change that. But how has? It's not the last question, but we're rounding off. How has the waginess of Kabisi? Okay, so let me be serious. How has the transition of Kabisi transformed you?
Okay, so for one, I get to stop acting like a last born. And I had to take actions, take decisions. Sometimes I have to put myself last, think about others, think about the impact of my decision before I take them. And basically I had to grow up.
You had to stop being the last one. If your father were here today and he read this book, what would he say?
Well, but I think the first thing he would have done rather. I think we edit the book first. Oh yes.
Okay, fair enough.
It's very thorough. So I think he would have done that, and then I just said, "Is this what you have to say about my life?" Maybe he would have said that, and I think he would have just said, "Well, you tried, but
could have been better." Is that you speaking or him speaking though?
Okay, so I'm thinking of the exact words would have.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just think about writing my biography next,
Okay.
But I'm not going that direction.
That I know you can say. That I know you can say. If you could have one more meal with your dad, what would that meal be? Don't tell me in your please.
I don't know. But if I would, whatever it is he wants, and then I think I would just like to wait for him to finish whatever it is he's eating, and then I can take everything in his plate and finish up the food.
Classic last word. If you had to describe your dad's personality using only a Yoruba proverb.
Honest people. proverb now.
When you were throwing around proverbs in the book, you didn't know that I was going to ask you. Excuse you, I'm speaking. I'm speaking with an Amago. As far as I'm concerned right now, you are a leader. So yeah. See the way you are saying. Do you know? I always thought it was Deji. Oh my goodness! I didn't even know myself. Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't know what proverb to use now to describe him, but I think it would. I can't think of a proverb actually.
Fair enough.
Maybe it would have been the best word to use to describe him would have been. I'm not a fighter.
It's not a fighter. Yeah, why you think about that one? If you could time travel to witness one moment in his life, if you could time travel, what moment would that be?
In his life,
Mm-hmm.
there are many interesting moments.
Just one. The one that comes to you immediately. Just don't think about it so much. Just
There are many things I heard about him. Maybe from his pregnancy to.
So, which of these would you wish you had witnessed?
Yeah, maybe the day his mom was pregnant and was at the farm. And the way they always, she had laid a wrapper on the floor that when I'm tired I would go and rest or something. And then by the time she got back there, she met a feather. And then she was like, "Oh, who dropped this? This wasn't here when I left," and all of that. And then by the time they told her the significance of that, by the time they told her the significance of that was, I think it was at that point that she knew, oh, this was no ordinary child. So maybe I would have liked to be there when she got that revelation.
Truly spoken as an Omogori. Okay, so let's round this up. What's one habit of your dad's that you have unintentionally picked up? I can answer that, but answer it. Documentation. Go ahead.
No, I'm never as thorough as it was, but
Oga,
I am not as thorough as it was. So
I hear you. If your dad had a theme song, what would you be?
a theme song. I think his favorite poem was
Oh, it was part. Yeah.
He that is down, at no fear, falling.
Falling. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What's one thing you think your father would have been terrible at?
Cooking.
Why are you whispering?
The only thing I can make, was tea. That
tea
he makes
know.
very well.
Yeah,
So any other thing, you're on your own.
All right. If you could send your father a message today, like a letter, what would be your first sentence?
I think I would start with I won't start with I miss you. I'd rather say thank you. Thank you for there are many thank yous now. So thank you would definitely be the first phrase.
Right. What do you want people? Believe me. That's
Final.
What do you want people to take away from In the Footsteps of Love? 32 lessons from Abba.
So I think the most important thing is so that his grandchildren, they're still young, maybe in the next 5-10 years, they get to have an idea of who their grandfather was. And then, Ariafel was less than a year, so is definitely going to know who his grandfathers are.
So let me explain that sort of inside joke. This is my sister-in-law, by the way. My father died April 21, 2021, and my father transitioned. Let me speak because I'm in front of royalty. And her father transitioned September 23rd. Urafe was just about 4 months when my dad died, and he was about 8 months when your dad died. What an interesting year that year was, though. Yes, yeah. He knows them I think he knows them when he says them, and thank you very much for it. Of course, I'm writing a story about my mother and I right now, and that's going to come out later in the year, but I don't know whether I'm going to ever write a story about my dad. But this story in this and let me quickly just run through the 32. Okay. It says God is over everything. Choose your battles wisely. Put your immediate family first. Giving is a blessing. Take care of your parents. Hard work pays. Document everything. Make plans for the future. Different viewpoint. It could have been worse. Be grateful. Lesson 11 is a good name is priceless. 12, sharing goodness. Oh, that's a good story too. You should read it. Lesson 13, personal development is a must. We didn't talk about self-awareness. That would take too long. All right. Rest is underrated. So what are you doing differently? History can't be distorted. Then lesson 16, death is inevitable. We have 11:17 telling us learn to say no. You need to find out how Kapisi said no. An angry person.
I think I only saw him angry once.
I wish I could say the same. An angry person is a semi-mad person. Relationships are key. Lesson 20, words are powerful. 21, you are made by your decisions. Live within your means. 22, prayer plays a critical role in receiving answers. Live well. 24, learn from mistakes. Life is in phases. One of my favorite quotes. Be generous and exercise discretion. We spoke about that. Life goes on even after anything. It could have been worse. Home is where the heart is. Lesson 30. It takes a community to raise a child. Promotions will bring you unfriendly friends. Lesson 31. Figure that's lesson 31. And then lesson 32 is transition periods are delicate. Now, here's the thing. These are 32. So one for each day except February. Except February. All right, one for each day. You actually can just take one and read it and meditate and expand it for yourself, and then be able to relate it to yourself, your own stories. You've heard me say over and over again that our stories of origin, whether good, whether bad, whether in the middle, these are sitting with our stories are the things that make us better people, because we become then self-aware of the things that we should drop and the things that we should pick. Your final words as we round off, if you have any. If you have any.
Final words would be, many people lived and they are gone, but then once in a while we remember them, we remember their names, but then there's really nothing to say about them, because sometimes we tend to forget after a while. Not for everybody anyways. The memories may fade, but then I think the whole essence of the book is so that in maybe 50 years time, when I'm beginning to lose it,
You can remember.
I can remember him clearly. And then same for the children and grandchildren, and maybe the great great grandchildren, 3 generations down the line, they know something about their forefather. That's the whole essence. And
All right, that's a good essence, right? And we've been speaking with are you still a Mogoripo? Yeah, immediate past Mogoripo. How do we say it now?
like in Yoruba land, they'll say once a regent, always a
Always
regent.
in regents. Okay, we've been speaking with Omagoriopo, Princess Mofebishola Mefoworade. Did I say it right? Fewo
Mefoworade, the
Ah,
W is silent.
Mefo. Yes, the W is silent in our dialects, both Ondo and Ekiti. Omopeloye. And we're talking about in the footsteps of love. That is just lessons from Abba, His Royal Majesty Oba Samuel Oladapo Oyebade, the immediate past, Ologotun of Ogotun, Ekiti. How does this story relate with living mindfully? Simple self-awareness, writing your stories of origin and taking whatever it is from your parents or the people immediate around you to help you rewrite your story for yourself and for the future. Follow us on socials, would appreciate it. Mindfully Tumishe or Tumishe Okuku. I am Ulua Tumishe Oladapo Kuku. Love yourself, love your neighbor, love your country. Above all of this, love God. He's the essence of your being.